Good evening. Tonight I'm going to continue with my last discussion and talk about some of the other pertinent facts that I have concluded from my vast and various research. And I'm going to start this with some prefacing. Like I said, this is a theoretical context based upon lots of data that I sort through with varying degrees of interpretation, perspective. And there are other methods and things. I had started a project about 10 years ago before I got digging too deep into this, I even started this before, but I actually wrote a letter to the Louvre and to the Museum of Modern Art and sent it. And it was about a perspective piece dealing with a Machiavellian prince character and its interpretations on modern, and I didn't know where it was going to go, whether it be a strategic book or a character piece, or I didn't know where I was going with it, but I wanted it on the record because we all know I was being hidden right below the surface. It was that hiding in plain sight, as most of us have been most of our lives. You know, the overboard amnesia, sense of myopia, microscopic interpretation, because you're just buried in the mundane realities of everyday life, and you lose focus of. You can't really see the true perspective skies through the fog and the pollution. Pollution has a secondhand smoke, I think, has had an adverse effect. Not to mention, when I got hacked, my genetic code got hacked at LSU. What it potentially could have done was amplified negative interpretations. Therefore, the symptomatic predis- predisposition just would then be. So basically, what it's seeing, it's like what you're seeing in reality. It was a fantasy. It was almost a hallucinatory illusion of reality based upon genetic hacking. And that gets into The Island of Dr. Moreau, which is a famous book. Marlon Brando starred in the movie adaptation with Val Kilmer. And it was about genetic manipulation, modification, which is definitely hap- happened to me. What it is like I said, I'm a giant. We are all, most of my immediate are giants. We would be like a big refinery, or the big factory or power plant, multiple uses plugged in. We're plugged in as the energy sources, or it would be like batteries almost, but yet we get nothing from it. And the blinders are put on, so therefore we are unable to see what we are utilized for in a lot of the cases. And that's why I've started using started using tracking mechanisms to try to determine the propensity of my utilization. So the island of Dr. Moreau, and Moreau is a name probably because if you're going to genetically modify something, like with me, it dealt with Cornell because of the fraternity at LSU and Cornell's connectivity to Cornell. And there is some definite other symbologies through there dealing with Manhattan. The Upper East Side has Cornell Presbyterian Hospital on 69th Street. Now, I spoke of numerology. Well, 69 is a very important number. 69th Street, there's 10069, which is on the west side, where the Joe DiMaggio Highway, the ninth Highway, is on the west side, but on the other side of 69th Street. And then there's 90069, which is West Hollywood, where the Chateau Marmont is. And there's a lot of coincidences here. And I'm just throwing in all this flavor because with a flavor shows the potential pop culture interest that would be drawn. Think of it like my book. Well, if this is just fiction, and it could be great fiction, and I mean, it could be 3, 4, 5 books, um, would be like a Da Vinci Code, but with more modern pop culture and geography less, or characteristics of relatable material to the reader. Therefore, anything that's relatable to the reader is therefore understood more and liked more. Relatability is what a lot has to do with anything in pop culture. If you can relate to it, if you understand it, you feel like you fit in. It's all about reinforcing your psychology. And when you get into brainwashing, reinforcing your psychology through repetitive or camaraderie is a often utilized tool. And it happened to me. I mean, I was in a coma for many, many years. I was lost. Like I said, I was an easy mark because I suffered from ADHD and nothing sticks. And I have to make exact lists, and I never made lists until, I mean, I have to make exact lists or I just forget. I mean, that's the way I've always been. I never could memorize because I couldn't pay attention long enough to something, so my grades suffered. So, genetic manipulation goes into taking it would be and it's used on many different multiple levels. Most notably, the distribution of energy. My core energy being power of, and I think it has to do with birthright. Like Cain and Abel. They're even doing a version of Cain and Abel. There's even a raising Cains there. But yeah, Cain, it has to do, and vulnerable and disable. I know there's several other Abels. Um, but it has to do with the propensity within the genetics as a rank. Because much of the world is built upon genetic rank and hierarchy. Culture, it's built upon, it's built upon sedimentary stratas of society, whereas we live more in a um, lava sort of field where it's a morphic, it's reprocessing itself, igneous sort of rocks, that sort of thing. That's more what we're living in, whereas a lot of the world is sedimentary in structure. And we happen to be a high ranking, and mine, especially, so I think what it is birthright, keys, access, which I'm not able to use because, like I said, we pay billions, even though everybody else around us pays thousands, and then I get lowered below them in order to protect those that I'm donating to. And there's other sorts of things. One of the other hacks that could be construed, it's being misconstrued, is Saint Jean Vianney, where I was confirmed. Saint Jean Vianney was the father of the priest. And that's JV, the initials, the SJV is something there. And the problem is I'm a junior, and I played junior varsity golf in Texas. That's where the whole Tin Cup and that sort of thing. But I never made varsity because I worked all summer at the meat processing plant there in Houston, hauling meat, which should have been good, building muscle and this, But we were being obviously utilized for our muscle rather than anything else, hiding it as energy. But I want to understand that because there's something really fishy going on. I would like to audit the credentials. There's got to be a way to if you can measure electricity, like plugging something into a wall, you can measure this influence, peddling influence. That's what I think. Our influence is being sold in the same ramifications as electricity, energy, because of our high rank disposition, especially when you tie in Tulane, Touro Synagogue. There happens to be one of the oldest synagogues in London, which is aligned with the Mikveh Synagogue here in Savannah, is the Bethel Marks. It's Marks, but it's one of the oldest synagogues in London. Touro connects with Providence, Rhode Island. There's all sorts of and I know what it is like I said, keys. I think it's keys. That's what we're making. There was a character in The Matrix, and The Matrix deals with a lot of Old Testament. Um, I think it was Leviticus, actually, or Exodus, maybe, who had a lot to do with Exodus, the book in the Old Testament. And so there was a guy called the Key Maker, and that's how I feel. We produce keys for these. We can hotwire Lamborghini, or we can get a VIP suite, the Monteleone. I wrote him a letter the other day on Twitter because that's my only mean. I said, does Louis Marks Estate have a house account there? And I listed something like Chef Boyardee, and I told him something about Nicolas Cage, and I'm trying to figure it out, and they started following me. I don't know what that means. I don't know. Like I said, the difference is I'm not allowed to access cash because I am there I think I'm too valuable because they plug too much into me. It's like I've got plugs. But it's like I've been so overloaded. You ever seen an electrical socket where you just overplug, and it starts spitting out flames like a dragon shooting fire? That's kind of how I feel most of the time, because I'm suffering from hunger pains. I have an empty plate. I do nothing because I can't, you know, I don't know what the problem is. I'm not great at hustling a deal. I've tried. I've met with 200 people since I've been here. But I'm not great at going out and finding or sniffing out or hustling a deal to that say. I've sent thousands, literally tens of thousands of emails and letters all over Los Angeles, New York, Aspen, Savannah now, and other places. So it goes back to the genetic hacking predisposition. So we are donating tons. The JV also, JV is huge. There was something called the Jesuit Volunteers. And just so happens, one of Hunter Biden, Joe Biden's son, was a member of the Jesuit Volunteers. But I specifically wrote a note to the vice president's office saying, I am not affiliated with that. It's not that I'm not an altruistic person or philanthropist, it's that I am literally starving to death, and our state is being decimated because we cannot control what's going on, in my estimation. So our estate is being looted, pillaged, sacked, ransacked, just desecrated. If I don't do anything, there will be nothing left. If there's anything left that I could salvage in the meantime. Red Fox, Sanford & Son. I am a beautician for Sanford Stadium. Red Fox happened to be his last show. What happened to be called The Royal Family, and he was born on the same day I was born, 12/9. He was born in St. Louis, and his name was actually Sanford, like Sanford Stadium. And well, Emerson is my sister's father-in-law and brother-in-law, and his name's Emerson. There's Emerson Electronics in St. Louis County. There's all sorts of these collaboration sort of symbiotics. Like I said, it doesn't really matter. A lot of it has to do with like tumbler combinations. If the pieces fit, it doesn't seem to matter. So it's all these sorts of strange coincidences sort of thing. Emerson Electronics has a lot to do with everything. Lots of different companies there. And St. Louis. So what I think they're doing is diverting into St. Louis, which happens to have Budweiser, Spuds McKenzie. Remember those ads? Those Bull Terrier. And now they have Bullseye, which I worked for Bullseye through a craft food division that's now Target. It's all started. They work for work with Neiman Marcus on the same day as my sister's birthday at Join a Deal. That's just strange coincidental correlations. That's material, filler for the book, or I don't know what it is. Like I said, this is what I discovered. This is raw material. I would like to return it into something tangible, but I don't exactly know how or what. I need a professional staff or an agent to figure out how to sell what to what, or legally what ramifications might exist, that sort of mentality. So, not rightly sure. Basically, I've been locked out. A known commodity my entire life, obviously a high-value target to get street cred because of all sorts of things. And spotlighted, locked out, and told to go play in the woods while I'm massively, because of these genetic hacks, massively handicapped. So I'm supposed to go, but the people now, what happened was, most of my life when it was like a bullfight, matador. I was being stabbed. And, well, what it was like drills, spears, and, or I speak in metaphorical, cryptic context a lot of the time. But, like, these code hacks, like Hack of Shack, or the hacking, Jason Voorhees, another JV there, hacked with a machete. And that's so I got hacked with all these codes that were altering my genetic propensity, and therefore and my energy was being extracted. So I was being I'd be stabbed and then gushing black gold. It's like the Beverly Hillbillies. Well, I'm that rabbit they shot up, and I'm the one and not just me. Everybody came up and stuck their fork in me, or stuck their spear, or stuck their whatever in me, and whatever scheme they wanted, I was used for energy to validate. Because what's going on now, there's a lot of different genetic code, or societies built on code networks. And so when you attach me or any of my family members to these networks, it's like a superpower turbo boost. It validates it, first of all. We are used as an authenticator because of our infallibility based on theoretically St. Louis Cathedral and Truro Synagogue potentially, and also a power source. So what we do is it's a battle right now over programming. There's battles over what programming supersedes precedences, and we are used to validate certain schemes. Therefore, I was hacked into all these certain um, schemes, incredible things. But for the most part, starvation. Like I said, I'm suffering from malnutrition because of strip mine, my body. Like I said, think of us like Crown Mountain there, sitting there, but I have been completely hollowed out into a dome, and there are games going on inside of me, just plugged up and blowing up like Violet Beauregard on Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, and Willy Wonka's going on inside of me, but I get no benefit at all. My body doesn't do anything. Like when I eat, I am strong, I'm healthy, I have but nothing matters because I've been hacked almost to death. I hacked into a coma. I am in there was a show, Todd Lubitsch was Bubble Boy, played by John Travolta, JT, which is another prominent thing, initials. But, and this does have a lot to do with the same sort of numerology, Scientology sort of strange things, but numerology has a lot to do with it. Birthdays, all sorts of things that are accessed wormhole portals using this strange, it's really a fantasy of what's going on. I never believed in it. Like I said, there was Tom Hanks was in I used to play Dungeons and Dragons, and and when I was a kid, Tom Hanks was in a movie, and he got all weird, and because he got stuck in a game, and he thought he was in this game, but I never put much sense into it, even though I should have. The demonic possessions really haunted me because I don't really have much left as far as my possessions, and it's just really strange, though, that because of actuary tables and all these sorts of precedences, it's just strange. Well, see, precedences are used in its perpetuation, continuum, and all these different variations of rules and schematics and precedences and logic-based programs of program life. I have tried to I don't have the resources to fix myself. I could relatively easily fix myself, but I don't have the resources to fix it because I am used in all of these schemes which are protected. And I can't focus. I have trouble focusing, and so I just, like I said, right now my whole mentality is escapism. That's all it's been for a few years. I'm not doing any quality work other than I'm playing the role of the man in the Iron Mask. Leonardo DiCaprio played Prince Louis, and the man in the Iron Man mask, like Tony Stark or Philip Stark, where he wrote, "Dude, where's my car?" And then, so the funny coincidence there is Ashton Kutcher was actually in the same fraternity as I was in. And who was it? Punked. Yeah, punctuation, omega, that sort of. This is all strange, coincidental sort of thing. So Tony Stark or Philip Stark, who wrote for South Park, and he wrote, "Dude, where's my car?" Which I keep asking a lot of the times. That's what I put under the Monteleone thing. I was like, something strange. It was like Body Snatchers. A lot of the time, Trading Places, Louis Winthorpe, or Freaky Friday. There's a lot of Body Snatchers was actually written originally by Robert Louis Balfour Stevenson. Something called Balfour Rings in Austin, Texas, from Louisville, Kentucky. There's all strange Jekyll and Hyde sort of mentalities there going on. These are all just coincidences for your entertainment purposes only. And just to show you what I've uncovered in my diggings. And these are known commodity sorts of things. So people wanted to ride me like a skateboard because there was a movie called Thrashing, but way back when, I don't know if I mentioned this the other day. Brett Marks was in the Bad News Bears as Jimmy Feldman, and he was also a guy called Bozo. And I have been turned into a beautician. What it is any blemish on any number of these factions that are See, not only do I give energy, I beautify those that use my energy. I mean, it's that I'm that big of a sucker. You know, I am the deal of the century. You know, Chevy Chase movie about the arms dealer, that sort of thing. Deal of the century. I mean, they pay nothing. I got paid to get screwed, basically. My pimps get paid. You know, my comedy is pretty funny. I'm actually a comedian. I don't know if it's comedy or sarcasm, tragedy. Not really sure. Depends on who you are and to what degree of exposure you have to the collateral damage area. So it's like riding a skateboard or a bull, but in actuality, see that goes where it goes into the genetic modified island of Dr. MoreO. They wanted to turn the bears, they wanted to shrink us down and turn us into gummy or teddy bears, first of all, because they wanted to be able to handle. They thought they could control everything, but you can tell by the deficit and the global economy and the out of control everything, they obviously can't. We are the balance. Louisiana should have been a principality sort of state, yet we were hijacked way before 9/11. We were hijacked by the bull mob, and most notably because of energy jobs. All of the chemical and refinery jobs, probably. That's a lot. A lot of the money in Louisiana comes from energy, and we have. I mean, for the most part, not providing anything because we are just playing the hands-off sort of nothing. As far it's discredit. Like I said, the energy that is extracted from me or my family or other people, not just me, that we're not the only ones. I don't think that. I think we are there are other families like us. Like I said, there are other degrees of power. It's like a periodic table, if you think about it. We just happen to be real powerful or real valuable minerals and materials, and we're used in a lot of different capacities for whatever. And the funny part about all this fantasy chemistry is they manipulate the numbers however they might want to. They can put anything together that they want to and utilize it in any number of ways. And therefore, that's the creative. Well, we are like the miracle. You know, if you need that's where it gets into the Goodwill Hunting math. You can solve any equation because all you have to do is put in this miracle equation exponent. That's what we are. We're like the miracle variable. Anytime there's a problem, just throw that miracle variable in there and the math solves itself. You know, just it's creative accounting. Loopholes, loopholes, exponents and things like that, variables, variances, all that sort of thing. And it deals with easements and things, and it's all about symbiosis correlations. And the problem is we are getting utilized, theoretically, of course, because we are unable to protect ourselves, because we are locked out. Locked out, I know, Lockheed Martin, that sort of thing. And what they're trying to do is spin us to where we lose our muscle, especially if we try to leave the country, which I've tried to do because we got screwed so bad and our interests are being decimated. Plus, I would like to expand, horizons to certain regions of the world. They don't want us to leave. They want to. I mean, they are too reliant. The mob, and I speak of they as there are various factions of the mob. Lots of different dimensions of mob in this that have a vested stake in this dug into my back, a spear in my back where it generates power or powers a scheme or something like that. And therefore, I mean, I'm not talking about the traditional mafia, the mob being a faction of some sort of conglomeration or something. There's a grouping that is utilizing our power influence for free. Solar, SunTrust, whatever you want to call it, free. We don't get a cent. Our pimps get paid, and a lot of it deals with liens against us. But we're talking about billions of dollars theoretically generated, and I've got liens against my body that are nickel and dime that could be solved real easily, yet they're used for unlimited flows. It's a bypass of the principle, and it was called a residual claimant, where it bypasses and it's an unlimited flow of energy, whereas the energy can then be converted into assets. So what they're doing is they're converting our energy into assets, genetic propensities through the genetic modified GMOs or whatever. And it gets into GMOs are validated in the Supreme Courts through certain cases, and it's used with Cornell, rice, and wheaten seem to be the big ones. Cornell, corn, wheaten, and rice. Those seem to be the big ways of validating the transference, but it's really mutation. So what you're doing is you're creating mutations, and you're having to value. And so when you get into more, the only way to validate this mass, it's not just denial. We're talking about widespread genetic mutation here, theoretically. The only way to validate it is through cache hoard. So that's where you get into quantitative based system of just pile on the cache. So it's print more cache, print more cache. And they are Noah's Ark drowning the global economy, which is traditionally based sedimentary, based on more derived accounting principles. It's different accounting principles utilized here. Different. It's just, it's quantity on one side. It would be like going to Beverly Hills, or going to the suburbs, that sort of thing, or going to, any of these. It basically is it's the different types of towns. But the problem is they're utilizing a uniformity of camaraderie, a communal uniformity, which is strange. Another one of those accounting loopholes that I can't seem to figure out, but it seems to be validated because there is no question in digging into it of what's going on. And we happen to be and then insuring at all. And healthcare insurance, like I said, Blue Cross Blue Shield now controls the state of Louisiana, which is a Chicago-based formed from. Yet, I'm not willing to, we should. If they would have built us an estate somewhere, if we had if we knew what was going on, then maybe. But they gambled. It was a gamble. It was a big gamble, and we got gouged. You know what price gouging is? Well, we were gouged because we were bamboozled, we were hoodwinked, and we were gouged with lack of information. And ignorance of the law, one thing. But hey, I started putting pieces together, and I got boycotted and blacklisted. I sent 10,000 emails and phone calls and letters all over just trying to the media has since boycotted the story. So therefore, something's fishy, because the problem is, like I said, we're dealing with global assets. Our bank, mostly Louisiana, the Bank of Louisiana, dealing with St. Louis Cathedral, and I am acting as a capital principal for that entity, deals with global assets. So our pimp handlers decided they're going to take us over. They're going to capture us, and then they're going to use it, and they're going to control the global assets. But they don't care. They want, to them, it's a smash and grab job. They want to just knock it over. It's like knocking over a bank, They're going to knock that sucker down and loot it and pillage it. That's all it is. To me, I'm trying to maintain some accounting credibility, and maintain. I don't want it. It's not like a Goodfellas burn job and just get rid of the place, burn it down, and then they're transferring all the assets into new institutions, then burn down to hide, bury evidence. That sort of mentality. So yeah, it's connecting to France, Italy, Spain, Russia, Greece, England, and South America and Central America. A lot of the assets through Louisiana, in my estimation. And there are a lot of wormholes and teleportation portals, that sort of thing, that when you dig, it deals with this symbiotic correlation match game, like the kids play when you're a game. If you can match two cards together, you get to put it in your pile. Match game, like the kids. That's all it is. Match game. That's all it is. Nothing more. Seems to be, because there's no depth to it, and that's why it's such a paper-thin society based upon image and what you wear rather than who you are, that sort of mentality. And it's no longer dealing with blood is thicker than water. It's localized. It's a big hamburger factory, basically. They're just throwing everything into it, making meat patties, that sort of mentality. That's it. And we're getting gouged the most. Or nobody's acting in the interest of the bank, which I've identified which is just being decimated globally. So therefore, acting in that capacity, I should be able to generate some credibility globally, which could turn into If I had competent management staff of any sort of credibility that knew how to materialize what I've been working on, my credibility then therefore turned into something as far as consulting or, all sorts of different ways of looking at it, rather other than just the artistic side of it. Security work, if it has to be, or just finder's fees or something like that, or banking credibility in itself, accounting, accountability. But people don't want me to do that. They want to maximize it. What they're trying to do is they want to funnel the money through the system, then be the masters and feed the dogs. That's what they're wanting to do. They want to feed the dogs, but they gotta completely take. It's gonna take a ton because it's a big, big, big bank. I mean, it's huge, literally monstrous as far as untapped resources. So they're trying to funnel this through certain channels while maintaining control of. We happen to be the prime keys, that key maker. There was even a 2003 MTV Movie Awards where they did a joke about it. You can look at it on YouTube, and the opening scenes with Stifler, like yeah, and JT Justin Timberlake open the door like we're gonna go sip on some Chris. And they have some girls with them, but they can't get in the door. 2003, of course. And so the key maker walks up, who would happen to be me, and Chris is Louis Roeder or Cristal. So the key maker opens the door and yes, man, I'm sure I paid heavily. That's part of the beautician thing. They want to be independent proud. That's the whole thing. Independent proud. So they destroy the source and desecrate me as like blemish remover because of and then completely trying to dissolve and then verify the transference of it. And so that's when it gets into this terrible accounting practices and it's just they've lost control, but they don't really care. What happened is you got people who've made a certain amount of money in the United States. They can jump ship, but their bridges are burning. But they can still jump ship and leave. I said last year, if you're going to do this sort of game, you should just deflate the dollar rather than inflict the world to this imploding global economy. Fix the system. What I'm calling for is an overhaul of the global economic system. I've been calling for that for over a decade. Fix the system itself. Put in place a strong international governing body with a judiciary and an economic branch and an intelligence branch and a cultural branch and then evolutionary development in certain oppressed regions. I called for all this long, long ago, but I got ignored, of course, because it was a good idea. And they want to bury me. They want to they're the job of those that are utilizing my influence, the body snatchers, as you would, the Freaky Friday trading places, comrades in arms who have a communal interest in desecrating the source because they're trying to be independent, emancipate themselves, freedom of being tied to paying anything for their energy bill. It's really just an energy bill, is all it is. Or a hotel room key or a lease, that sort of mentality, because of the cost to the global bank, which is being decimated. Because there's a cause and effect here. There's a balance sheet that's not being equated for. They just keep printing more, MoreO, more, genetic modifications. So who's paying for it? The future and globally, but there's those in control that don't really care. They just want to keep the party going. And I'm calling for a more responsible justification of this, or exposing to what's actually going on. But it's too far out there. Then I'm stuck in the middle, like the four corners, the four corners of the clock. I literally am in the bullseye, stuck in the middle. Well, not necessarily. So I'm getting pressure from all angles because they all got paid. That's what happened. They got paid, so they didn't necessarily want me to keep utilizing that. And so they want to keep utilizing that wormhole that happens to be the bullseye or the bull terrier for Target or the barbecue sauce from Kraft, which I worked for. And that's the sort of thing. It's like I've tried to terminate all my practice. See, I should have been independent, working for myself, but I am forced. It's either die of starvation, living in the street, or get a job working within the system. Therefore, I am plugged into these scams or schemes or different coats, and therefore I am paying, like I said, whereas most people, they're not really worth anything. You know, they're a battery. I am a massive power. I would be like a power plant. I would be like Waterford Power Plant in South Louisiana, or River Bend, or actually Diablo Canyon, or San Onofre, or one of these big power plants, or Indian Point right outside of Manhattan, owned by Energy, that provides 40% of the energy to Manhattan. Or, and most other people would be a battery. It's like a mainframe IBM Big Blue. That's what me or my immediate family would be because of the power, and most people would be a PC. That's the difference. A bank, we would be like a bank because we affect a big global pool of assets, whereas most people would be an account. And that's not being mean, that's just math. That's logic-based math dealing with propensities, the state. That's what I have been building myself to be. Yet I am not allowed to control because my pimp handlers, and they're doing a poor job mismanaging it because they're trying to protect themselves, because they don't necessarily want to face the reality of the horrific nature. It's a lot of extreme reciprocity, retribution, revenge, beautician cosmetics. And that's where you get into, once you break the seal, that's where you get into, you got a lot of these betters that are just massively, it's like if you even broke the seal, that gives you the right to an unlimited, no limit credit card sort of mentality, the breaking the seal mentality, where you get it's just better and better and better. It's like Annie, get your gun. I can do what I can do, what you can do, I can do better, that sort of mentality, but it keeps raising and raising and raising and raising, whereas I'm stuck in the basement, whereas I'm providing the whole power for the whole high rise. I'm the house. That's what, you got to look at things as being, if you learn to see, like Steve Wynn built Beau Rivage right around where I was from, obviously, dealing with a lot of different things. Harrah's is owned by a group that owns Hardee's, and that owns Caesar's Palace. It's owned by, I think, TXU and Apollo, which is, Hardee's is based in St. Louis. There's all these sorts of astronomical coincidences. And then, there's a lot of it that's going on. MGM, Louis B. Mayer. I'm not saying that's me, but I'm just saying that if they derive power from me, where's our check? Where's our royalty check? Well, of course, royalty free. Because we're chumps that don't get a cent. We're the true blood chumps. We just blood in the water, bleeding and bleeding and bleeding. They come scoop it up and utilize it, or we're lured. There's all sorts of levels of exploitation, whether it be a lure for the big fish, that sort of thing, for poaching or any number sort of way, or to poison. It's like if they hack us, it actually affects, it's a ripple effect. Genetic trigger mechanisms, as I called it. It's like when you pluck a string, the harmonic string theory, what is the Newtonian reactionary physics globally through a genetic strings, dealing with individualities or within the circumstances. It's a network, like the mainframe network, a big computer network. What happens is if you put a virus in me, it affects a whole sector. And therefore, people are hacking me to death in order to pollute the sector so they can swoop in and look like heroes and then snatch up all the jewels and snatch up all whatever they want, and then take the assets and redistribute them, rebrand them, and then sell them as their own. And where the chunks, we just found a bunch of diamonds laying there on the ground, picked them up and sold them. Hey, ain't nothing there. It's all about that manipulation of precedences. Manipulation is a big thing. It's not manufacturing, it's manufiction in half the time. Yeah, just because I'm Louis and it's Louisiana, the natural resources derived does not necessarily give right to my body. Yet, where's my paycheck? That sort of mentality. Or that's why my aunt should not be working for the state, or my cousin should not be a teacher. We should have our own school. I told my cousin a long time ago, we should have built our own private school. That's what I would have said. We should build our own private school. I would I will be a big altruist, a big philanthropist once I get my affairs in order. But I want to get my affairs in order, figure out what I have before it's just give everything away and I get nothing. That sort of mentality, the complete just decimated a state in order to validate, to be proud, a beautician proud, emancipates the sort of, and there's a lot of different, I mean, we can get into the Reese Jones effect with the fairways, scalped fairways, you know, where you're skinned alive, scalped, and they replant them as fairways, that sort of mentality, the holes, the keys, that sort of thing. I don't rightly know what their engineering is, but it smells a little bit like manure, you know what I mean? So, not rightly sure. Yeah, I'm being donated. I am donated because I am locked out in the woods. Therefore, certain factions are able to manipulate. And I've already been hacked so much to where my body is, I'm a bubble. Todd Lubitsch, Bubble Boy, John Travolta. And then Jake Gyllenhaal played another thing about Bubble Boy. I am surrounded by a bubble. I mean, I literally get nothing from my food, nothing. You know, I am completely hacked to be no, you know, nothing. Because I was hacked so many times. So then everybody, once they hacked me to nothing, then nobody has to do anything because it's like a factory. You know, they're just producing through me. I don't get anything. That's where I get into the old parasite medication. And I'm trying, you know, voodoo charms, whatever you might want to be. And there's an interesting place y'all might want to look at. Miller Rexall in Atlanta is a big voodoo store, and they deal with Marie Laveau's. Can't hurt the evil eye thing, you know, maybe protect you. I'm hoping to protect myself from all those possessions that I've discarded, because they are definitely. And why am I not allowed to the replacement possessions? That's another reason I am kept so far down. You know, the Jew downscape, JUDDOWN, is the skis, you know, or skateboard. I'm just riding around. I'm kept down there low prices, mini pearl, that sort of mentality. And why I cannot, like, I could, what the things that I have gotten away, I could have ordered the toys. Stretch Armstrong, you know, like Kenner Toys, like Louis Armstrong Airport. That's a lesson there. You can't stretch so much if you're going to fly and try to land. There's got to be some rigidity or the plane will go mush, cracked. That's another lesson that's being desperately mismanaged. You know what I mean? Stretch arms. And there were a ton of toys I had. The Guns of Navarone, which I look for, not for sale anywhere. Toy truck, you know, all these sorts of Matchbox, Hot Wheels, all those sorts of things, or my golf clubs, which I don't know where they are, any of these things. But I can't replace any of the guns I had, any of that stuff, because I haven't been able to, really. Because that was part of the motive of shrinkage, so far down shrinkage, you know, the gummy bear shrinkage in order to be a contained. The pressures formed from so many angles because I was giving away so much. People get addicted to giving away. That's what happened with my aunts working for the state. They got addicted to us being hooked into the system, or my grandmother. They got addicted to us. Well, they want us dependent so they can use us. That's part of the scam. The mob does the dirty work. The local mobs do the wildcatters and the roughnecks. They do the dirty work, and the big beneficiaries are those in different various locales. I mean, it definitely connects into New York, who seems to be ignoring us, playing dumb with the whole issue, and Hollywood. We should have. I mean, William Morris should have sent me a jet, and I should have been their first concern, but instead they tried to play around me. They wanted to play others against me rather than playing us as the VIP, you know, because they're utilizing our influence. So well, that should have been, you know, a no-brainer, but instead they lied. And now it's been the whole tug-of-war sort of mentality. All I'm using them for is to try to genuine connectivity and to generate enough revenue to hire a competent management team to handle the affairs properly. Because obviously, there's something here. I've got too much, you know, well, you know, in the whole thing adage of there's smoke, there's fire. Well, there is a forest fire raging around as far as evidence, or like I said, astronomy. There is a massive spiraling connectivity patterns forming. You know, huge galaxies forming constellations of coincidental synchronicity, Jungian synchronicity, forming in all these patterns. Therefore, it's not a coincidence. So if you've got to learn to manufacture that into revenue or into profit, whatever it might be. but I'm unable to accomplish anything, basically, because the only tool I have is, thankfully, this camera and the connectivity, even though it's threatened constantly. And that's about it. You know, I really don't have anything else to utilize or any other sort of thing. So these are just theories of mine, trying to figure out it might be able to help protect any people that are in similar circumstances, or, like I said, it might just be a real good book, a new version of The Prince, sort of this living as an entity. Fiction, nonfiction, don't rightly know. I should be able to make money either way, but I'm not allowed to. Worst case scenario, I should be able to turn this fiction case into a few $1 million and a great, great art piece. I mean, honestly, it's a great art piece. Because it's got so much depth and so many angles and so many different um, fields of fields of different. You know, it goes into business, politics, it goes into art, it goes into sociology, it goes into anthropology, it goes into history. You know, it goes into all sorts of things, literature. So I mean, it's got a lot of depth. It's real, real deep. You know, therefore it should either be really good art. That was what I wrote to the Louvre and to the Metropolitan Museum of Art, and I've written to the Smithsonian, I've written to the Los Angeles Contemporary Art, I've written to the Stedvik, the Rijksmuseum, I've written to the Tate, I've written to the London Historic, you know, I've written all over the world. The Hermitage, I don't know what anybody sees. I don't know what they think. This is mostly done through Twitter, Facebook. I was sending a lot of emails. Emails don't show up. At least I know with Twitter and Facebook, somebody's seeing all this stuff, especially the media knows. I mean, the New York Times, I've been writing to the New York Times art section to protect myself, because I'm not sure of what's real or what's not, because I'm unable to validate it to manufacture the credibility. Then therefore I'm protecting myself by writing as art, but there's a lot of credibility there, justifying my existence. But this captivity waste, it's not reverence. You can call it what you want. It's not reverence. It's poorly mismanaged. I could have, for all my sins or whatever few there were, 20 years. I've been sober as a judge for over a decade, with the exception of very few periods of vacationing, drinks, and things like that. I mean, for the most part, sober as a judge for over a decade. I could have built monuments. I even said I could have built towers or monuments or places of cathedrals or things like that, but they want me to suffer, because I think that's validating that's reason is because there's truth to me being used as electricity or keys. So they want me to suffer. Time is cost a lot more to us, because I mean, like I said, I could have built monuments, I could have built cathedrals, I could have built symphony halls, I could have built a number of things to make amends, but I'm not allowed to. The only thing I'm allowed to pay with is time and pain. You know, this Lone Star, Home Alone. I mean, just stupidity beyond all recognition of any recognition. It's beyond historically, and that's another reason you've got so many high-priced degrees, which we pay for a lot of them. So therefore, there's a whole nother cataclysm ball of wax. Yeah, there's a lot of high-priced degrees that look real dumb over this, and that's what's a lot of pressure put upon me that I'm the beautician for, so I got to look even dumber by being basically stuck in a hole hostage till I diluted my value, as you would say, therefore not rightly sure. So, I could be writing for a TV show, could be doing stand-up, I could be doing spoken word, you know, I could be doing films, I could be painting. I can't even, you know, I'm not doing anything except rescue. That's all it is. It's the Gilligan's Castaway Island mentality, dealing with trying to escape my secular isolationism in the bubble, and the Forrest Gumbo Castaway on there, and and people see me. It's like I've been dog paddling my whole life, just dog paddling from in between party boats. And I got on. For occasion, I got a lean. You know, I get to go hang out, drink some drinks for a few years. But then, in most of my life, it's been dog paddling around party boats, and people occasionally see me, and I don't know who knows what, to be honest with you. I think people honestly just close their eyes and turn their backs. The full moon fever effect, moonshine, full moon fever, madness, and I just keep paddling there. So they won't even let me in the boats. I'm sitting right there. They hear me now. Now it's a joke, especially in Los Angeles and Hollywood and New York, where I need to make some. All I'm trying to do is make a few $100,000 in order to set myself up in an office. Hire some competent people that are connected. See, I can't hire people that are connected to the right circles because I'm relegated into the Caddyshack to handicap me down because I supply so much free internet. I guess I don't rightly know. Or the I got held back in 10th grade, so it's Ren 10 10 Cup. Am I playing JV high school golf forever because they're trying to show it's arm wrestling to show who's more power than the church? That sort of mentality. It doesn't make any sense. It's ludicrous insanity, if anything. Bank robbery, if you want, from a lot of theoretical perspectives, but hey, not rightly sure what the problem is. But they give away our money, or my money. They bribe people. They got my wallet, and so my pimps, the handlers, and the many variations of me being in a cage, and then they turn us into like the Louis Marx Toys Rock'em Sock'em Robots, where Michael Vick goes to jail for fighting dogs, but the Rock'em Sock'em Royal Rumble there, you know, they get the pimps and gets paid. Everybody's cheering, that sort of mentality. Plus, it's reverent beautician there on top of it. So, what is the answer to the problem? I'm not rightly sure. Like I said, I can't do anything without doing anything without doing anything, obviously, because I'm not rightly sure. Because I would like to fact checker, validate. But I'm not, this theory, fiction, there's so many different ways of what it could be, but I'm not rightly sure because I am unable to get anything accomplished or accomplish anything for what might be going on. So, gouged. See gouged on there. Victims as beautician to the guilty. And then we're in the rat maze runaround. That's part of us being in there in this myopic state of existence. Whereas we're powering this huge grid, but we're stuck down in this little hole in the ground, spinning around, like a rat maze, spinning around on this wheel to power the massive nuclear power plant. That's how, efficient, wild this is, or how stupid it is in my estimation, because somebody's got to say, what's going on here? And everybody's afraid because it's like once you screw somebody, and it's like the rodeo drive rodeo mentality. If you ride a bull, you get off, but we're not bulls. We've got a lot of, if we wake up, they're afraid that that's the problem. Those that have screwed us are nervous about us waking up. That's been part of the hindrance, in my estimation, is they don't necessarily want us to wake up because then they might get the bill for what they've been spending on the wallet that they've been utilizing. It's like that Ferris Bueller when the guy takes out the Ferrari, but he leaves it in the parking garage and they take out the Ferrari. It's really strange. So you got so many different levels, but they hotwired a whole fleet of exotics. They took over the whole Monteleone. They took over a whole bunch of interesting Chateau Marmont. I've been trying to get a suite to write a book, either there or the Monteleone. It's just amazing. Just amazing. With any competent management, could real easily be one of the most important artists of my generation. Real easily, because I've done the work. But the problem is they are more worried about me being the beautician to validate those that are utilizing my influence. So I'm desecrated. So desecration, humiliation in order to try and dine and dash, avoid any sort of payment for screwing or utilizing the wallet, or it's just bizarre. That's another, you got to look at motives from a lot of different angles and a lot of different principles of accounting. That's what this is all about. Different principles of capital accounting or communal principles of account. There's a lot of different principles. So, not rightly sure. Hopefully this has been informative at least, or entertaining to some degree.